Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, guys. Kevin, the voice. My name is Nikoleta. I'm a cocaine addict. I'm also an alcoholic, so I'll try to introduce myself like that. Although I understand this is Cocaine Anonymous, and I do have such, utmost respect and admiration for this fellowship. In my early recovery, I heard a talk. I think her name was Lila or Layla. It was like sometime in 2007, and I fell in love with her. Never saw her. It was on a tape, and I just played that same talk over and over again in my early recovery because it just like hit me like somewhere in the depth of my being. I didn't really understand what she was talking about because I didn't necessarily have really an experience with it, nor could I verbalize the experience I was having in early recovery, and yet she spoke my language. My clean date is September 15, 2006. I didn't choose that date. I didn't deserve that date. I didn't do anything to earn that date. Looking back now, it was just really grace and mercy. It was absolutely grace and mercy. But what brought me to that place was this like really, really, really dirty, gritty addiction to cocaine and alcohol. And together, those two just brought me to my knees. Um, I was born and raised over there across the ocean. That's really not important. I don't have any memories until I was 5 or 6. Very first memory is mom kicking dad out of the house. I felt the tension in the house. I saw the fight. I got like nervous and tight in my little body, like I was confused about what was happening. I could feel the energy was not safe. I concluded that life was not safe. I didn't really feel connected to my family. And I didn't know how to move with that. And I just got addicted to thinking. And and my mind had a lot of commentary about what I was perceiving. I think in my early days, one of the ways that I escaped that was through having imaginary friends, you know, um, getting lost in books and getting lost in movies because I wanted to be in anybody else's story than my own. I was already not liking the present moment. I was already in conflict with life, with like being, with existence. I like already, even as a kid, couldn't sit still, didn't feel safe and didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. Um, Fast forward at 14, I end up in New York City as an illegal immigrant. And there were a lot of struggles in the early years, but for about 2 years, we really, really struggled. To keep it short, I was poor and homeless and hungry on the streets of New York City for quite some time, living in abandoned buildings and squatting with strangers and, you know, um, working 3 to 4 jobs and walking 100 blocks to, save a token. $1.25 for a token was, $1 million to me back then. But I was ambitious to succeed. I was motivated and driven to, to get my share. To get my share, I can so relate in the big book where Bill talks about, I had arrived. I like wanted that. I was looking for that, and I thought that I needed to make that happen. And by the time I was 16, I was actually living alone in New York City and supporting myself. I don't say that to get pity. I really don't. Looking back, I have a wonderful family. They did the best they could. They didn't do anything wrong. All was well. It's just that's the cards I've been dealt. At 16, I was alone, supporting myself. And I don't say that to receive this role that I'm like a martyr or I'm a victim of that. As a matter of fact, looking back now, I'm so grateful for that. On one hand, it had me grow up really fast in some ways. On the other hand, there was nobody there to stand in the way of the path that was in front of me. Nobody put a pillow underneath my bottom. Nobody enabled me. Nobody cleaned up my mess. I didn't spend anybody else's money. I didn't like have anybody else feel my pain. Like it was good. Whatever I needed to see in my dance with alcohol and drugs, which I discovered and fell in love with and wanted more of, I saw that from A to Z all the way through. So that by the time I was 27 years old, I had a very profound experience of step one. And I think that during my active addiction, what I was experiencing really those 10, 11 years was just step one, the wisdom of step one. And in a very tangible way, I experienced it with cocaine and alcohol. I speak a lot in another fellowship with its primary purpose and singleness of purpose. So I haven't really verbalized a lot my cocaine addiction. I'm going to try to do that with you guys today. But I got introduced to my first line, and I remember it was yellow. He called it freebase. When I was like 17 years old, he was hot. He was doing it. So I was going to do it. Well, he left, but cocaine stayed. So that was my first experience with cocaine. I mean, like he left and cocaine stayed. I went to the spot where he copped without him, as soon as he was gone. And, I was young. I was ambitious. I was driven. I was full of life. And it was important for me to present myself in a certain way to those around me. So I kept up appearances and I learned to manage or manipulate really well what people saw, when they saw it, and how they saw it, and how I appeared. And I think any addict knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I think that was easy to do at 17. However, by the age of 19, size 0 was too big for me. I was gray and I was dying from cocaine addiction. Within 2 years, I spiraled really badly out of control. And there were some warnings from the family on the outside and some friends and things like that. And then I got distracted with another relationship and some other goals in life. And I picked up booze like I've never picked it up before. Then I had a few years of my dance with booze. And then sometime in my early to mid 20s, alcohol and cocaine married each other in my life. And boy, was I in love. I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about. I discovered alcohol. I discovered cocaine. It did something for me. The wheels of my mind stopped spinning. I felt empowered. I felt I could meet life. I felt that I could do anything. My reaction to these things was different than some of the people around me that were doing those things. They had the breaks. Years went by and they would get married or go off to college or have babies or want to travel or want to reach certain goals or have a really great job. And, even just on a regular Tuesday, at midnight, it's time for them to go home, but I want to always continue. I really do believe I suffer from the disease of more. I don't know any other drug that I don't know any other drug that shows me that more than cocaine. I mean, the obsession with that drug was just unparalleled, unparalleled. And I would in those 20s, I would reach bottoms and I would like furnish it and invite you over. I would normalize wherever bottomed I landed at. Trying to pretend that this is okay. I can handle it. I can still manage. I'm still young. I can do whatever I want. It's my life. And really, looking back, I mean, I couldn't verbalize it then, but I just needed relief from myself. And the book that tells us that so well. Self-reliance fails me. And self-manifested in various ways is what defeats me. I mean, these two sentences like shoot right to the heart of the matter for me. Because why the hell did I need to numb and escape and like get loaded as much as I did into that kind of oblivion? How come that I sensed that something was not right, especially after 3, 4, 5 day binge where I'm not sleeping and I'm trying to keep up appearances, which I'm not able to keep up. And yet I have this mental obsession that continuously brings me back to that thing, knowing that it's going to go on for days. I never ever used cocaine. You know how you meet some people who use cocaine for a New Year's Eve? Like, what? Like, oh my God, like, who are you? Where are you from? Like, I could never relate to that. Just like I could never relate to a person that had a drink or two or that drank during happy hour. Like, I didn't have this kind of relationship with these two substances. I think it's really important to take a look at what is my personal relationship with these substances and what happens for me, in me, and through me when I pick them up. What is it that my experience shows? And my experience abundantly shows that I don't have the brakes. And, for as long as I could, I defended my right to do that because it was my life. And I wanted to defend my right to live my life any way that I wanted to. It was New York City. I was in my 20s. It was all my money. I lived alone. All the stories that I tell myself to rationalize or minimize the pain that I'm sensing. I'm sensing I'm not being too smart. I'm sensing this is not okay. I am sensing no one else around me is doing this like that. It's really bad when you have a cocaine dealer in your house every night and a crack dealer in your house every night, and the crack dealer won't sell you crack. It's bad. It's bad when you get to a point of making amends and you're making amends to the cocaine dealer after talking to my sponsor, after a few years sober and clean, because I know he's a family man and I know that he's been doing this in Washington Heights for generations, right? And he was always cool with me and respectful. And I had a gambling debt with him and I had a cocaine debt with him. And I'm trying to give him back money. And he's like, we're good, man. We're good, girl. I'm glad you clean. I'm glad you're sober. So I don't need to qualify. All I got to tell you is those two things, which I'm so happy to say it here because I've never said it in Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's a couple of my friends are here. So I get to verbalize these experiences with you guys. So that's really, really sweet. Thank you for allowing me to have this experience and to honor, what brought me to where I am today. Yeah, it was gritty and it was painful and it was dirty. And, and I just couldn't stop. I just couldn't stop. And I wouldn't admit that. I wouldn't admit that until the only answer to evidence of me unable to just continue to do that into oblivion was to end my life. And that's exactly what happened the night before my clean date. I had my third eviction notice for my apartment that year. I was already unemployed and unemployable for about 6 months. I went from running a bookkeeping department of a multi-million-dollar company on Madison Avenue and 57th Street to hostessing at a restaurant 3 blocks away from the office. I was full of resentment and bitterness and anger. I blamed my state of being and my condition on everybody else. And of course, not knowing that I would need relief from all that commentary and all that negative perceiving of life and myself, this relationship with life. I was always in conflict with life. There was always somebody to blame. I always looked externally for how I felt internally. I didn't know that at the time because I was never taught that I could question the things that go through my head and how I perceive things. Today, I know that I'm suffering from a disease of perception. Today, I know that I don't have to just go to my mind for information. Today, I know that my friend is anything that relaxes the mind. And I'm not talking about drugs. I'm not talking about drugs and booze when I say that. There are healthier options. There are sufficient substitutes that are available. But I didn't know that at the time. And it just got uglier and uglier and uglier until the veil of delusion just peered apart enough for me to see some truth that I was really, really screwed. and that I was in a lot of trouble and that I was dying. And that was an experience of step one. And I want to shout from the rooftops, and I've been shouting from the rooftops for 18 years that if I was to say anything that contributed the most to my 18 years of clean time and my continued insistence that I participate in a fellowship and my continued curiosity and enthusiasm about recovery was the experience of step one. I don't say I'm an addict because they told me I was an addict. I don't say I'm an addict because they labeled me as an addict. I don't say I'm an addict to speak at your meeting or to take up a chair. I really say that because I know what I suffer from and I know how much trouble I'm in. And I know that I've been checkmated by this illness. Bill talks about it so beautifully in his story, and I can't really verbalize it better than that. Without it, I am restless, irritable, discontent. Without it. I am confused by my inability to stop once I started. I don't really understand the mental obsession and how it operates in clever ways, and I never question it. And I come to a place where I want to prove to myself that I can manage this because I see others managing it in my life. Some others I see managing it in my life. And I also want to get a sense that I have control and power. And I think the name of the game in the 12 steps in a deeper way is about control. I think the whole name of this game is about control, right? We got to quit playing God. The book it just says right away, it doesn't work. It doesn't even let you answer. It just gets to the heart of the matter. And for me, it just gave words to the experience I've already had for years that I couldn't have gotten to unless cocaine and alcohol was my teacher. And I'm so grateful for these two teachers. I'm so grateful. They broke me open. They brought me to my knees because nothing else was going to bring me to my knees and break me open like step one experience with alcohol and cocaine. And I know a lot of people that have experiences of restlessness, irritability, and discontent, and maybe they go on shopping sprees or eating sprees or gambling sprees, or maybe not even that drastic necessarily. But mine was a tangible experience. I drank when I didn't want to. I banged on that door of that Washington Heights apartment 4-5 times during the day. 4 in the morning, 7 in the morning, 11 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. I couldn't even, I used on the streets, I used in New York City payphones, in bathrooms of every establishment you can think of. I could not use. And it's ugly. What's there to defend? I'm not defending that. I'm defending my right to make my choices, thinking that I'm in control. And this experience brings me to a place of just telling the truth for the first time. Like, there's absolutely nothing I can do. I promised myself every single day that I wasn't going to drink and that I wasn't going to call the dealer. Every day. And I do some really, really shady and shitty stuff to get what I need and want when I don't have. I have credit of $1,000 because that's my paycheck every week. So on top of the paycheck that I had back in the day, I also had that much credit. I can never catch up, right? The relationship with the substances became more important than any other relationship in my life. And on September 14, 2006, as Bill says in his story, which I so relate to, and I can't really find better words for it, so I want to honor his words. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in the bitter morass of self-pity, quicksand stretched all around me. I'm suffocating. I'm dying. I'm drowning. Alcohol or cocaine was my master. I have met my match. I have been overwhelmed. I was cornered on September 14, 2006 under the influence, And like that under the influence where it's gone on for so many weeks and months that, I'm like hallucinating and I'm paranoid and I am like, is that lint or sheetrock or cocaine? Oh my God. We should just write books like on shit we do on our knees, like the stuff that went up my nose and the stuff that I tried to smoke and the stuff that I tried to cook. I'm so glad to be in Cocaine Anonymous. I've never talked about this stuff before, but I see you guys smiling. So, you're my people. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody here is relating. How do we all end up in the same spot if we're so unique and special? How come you have my thoughts? How come you have my feelings? How come you have my experiences? How come all addicts and alcoholics, no matter where they're from, end up in the same parking lot? How come? Food for thought. And, I told the truth. I can't stop. That was the truth with a period after it. And I was crushed because I've been wanting to stop for a while. I didn't want to alienate my mom and my sister. I didn't want to lose that job. I didn't want to lose those friendships. I didn't want to not show up to my best friend's wedding. I did not want to show up to my best friend's mother's funeral. I did not want to pick up the phone. I did not want to have my bills, my everything shut off at home. I did not want to wake to on the floor of my apartment with a cockroach on my nose. I did not want to think that I'm seeing rats all around me. I did not want to look like that. I did not want to feel like that. And the solution my mind came up with was to end my life, and I meant business. And that's the best that I come up with. That's the best our minds come up with. That's the best my mind came up with. The solution that I came up with to my addiction and my alcoholism was to kill myself. And something really profound happened, and I've been honoring that moment for 18 years. I don't know what happened. Time stopped. Something shifted. There was an intuitive thought. I wanted to live more than I wanted to die. I shed some tears. I was on my knees. There was silence and stillness that I can't describe or explain. There was an intuitive thought to ask a neighbor for a quarter and go to a New York City payphone on the corner and call my sister and ask her for help. I remember that quarter, that 1 25-cent quarter was the most important, valuable possession in my life because it would connect me to someone that I could ask for help. Someone that wanted to help me for a long time. My sister, my only sister. And I called until she picked up. And this is where my journey into recovery begins. This is where my journey into recovery begins. But I talk about that step one experience, and I often talk about my step one experience because that was the baseline and the foundation of the house that has been built in recovery. It was that. I relate to your powerlessness. I don't relate to you. I don't. We have different lives, different upbringings, different experiences. Some of you are mothers, I'm not. Some of you are men, I'm not, etc., etc., etc. But I relate to your powerlessness. You speak my language. You speak the language that no one else understands, but I do. When you speak it, and you speak my language, you understand me, you hear me, you see me. And that experience of powerlessness, that realization in every fiber of my being that comes with in that experience, that split second was steps 1, 2, and 3. Steps 1, 2, and 3 happened right there in a split second. I didn't know it then. But all of the direction of what step 1, 2, and 3, I gave my will and my life over to my sister. Then I gave my will and my life over to the treatment center. Then I gave my will and my life over to a halfway house. Then I gave my will and my life over to a sober house. Like, I didn't make my own decisions. I didn't trust myself. I had hoped that there was another way because I had landed in some meetings under the influence in New York City where people had some more time than I could ever accomplish. I mean, I could not even get a day. So anybody in those meetings had more time than me. But that created some curiosity, really. And I think step two is really about stepping into the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen when I asked my sister for help. It's so funny. I was just completely in that present moment. All I knew is that I needed to ask her for help. And it really didn't matter what happened after that, where she told me to go. Nothing in my apartment mattered. Did I have anything? Did I bring anything? Like, I walked out of New York City apartment on September 14, 2006, under the influence of alcohol with my sister, and I never looked back. There was no agenda. There were no reservations. When the book talks about having no reservations and that any plans for the future, like, all of that has to be smashed. I need to know that I am bodily and mentally different. I had the experience of that in that moment. And so I went to treatment, and they asked me, why are you here? And I said, I just don't want to die. Because that's the only experience I knew, right? I was going to kill myself, but something in me wanted to live more than it wanted to die. And here I was in a mountain of Pennsylvania in some treatment center where they were like searching me, and I didn't understand, why are you like stripping me and searching me? Who goes to rehab with drugs on them? But now looking back, I'm like, that's how ready I was. I remember the driver asking me, you want me to stop somewhere? On the way there from New York City to PA, it was like 3-hour drive. He's like, I said, no. I didn't know the mental obsession was removed. I was having this experience that I've never had before. And looking back now, I tell you, I was being carried. It's grace and mercy. It's undeserved. Grace is an undeserved gift. I didn't do anything for it. I just needed to see the truth of my condition. It works by negating, I think, right? I don't trust infinite power. I don't trust finite self. That's how I trust in the infinite. By not trusting the finite. I needed to not trust me. And that was good. I felt that. I don't know where that came from, but that was good. I liked it. I felt that. I heard that. They handed me the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they told me to read. And I did. And I didn't understand what I was reading. I could relate to Bill, but all the other stuff was like really weird, bizarre language that I had no reference point for. But I read. Where did that willingness come from? That's a byproduct of step one experience. A true step one experience produces humility. It produces willingness. And it produces, I don't trust myself. And anybody else can run my life better than me. I'm not even talking about God. I'm talking about a clinician, a total stranger. Anybody else could run my life better than me. I didn't want to have the seizures. I didn't want to come to. I didn't want to, sleep with every messenger known to man. I didn't. I didn't want to continuously try to forget all the stuff that I did or all the situations that I put myself in. It just became uglier and uglier and uglier and uglier. And any of you guys know what I'm talking about. And I'm so grateful for cocaine because it just sped up my bottom, man. It sped up my bottom. That's what I love. I love Cocaine Anonymous. We get gritty, man. We are gritty. But sometimes I think about the book and it says something, I don't know, I might not, the deeper the bottom, the deeper the like joy or something. I just translated it differently, but like God matches calamity with serenity. I'm very lucky. I locked myself in treatment for 4 months. I didn't want to leave. I felt safer in a place where they told me what to do, when to eat, when to pee, whether I can watch TV, what time to wake up, what time is lunch, what time is breakfast, where, I didn't trust myself and I felt safe there. And I look back at that time and I'm like, why did I lock myself in treatment for 4 months? I didn't have any legal issues. Um, you know, uh, I wasn't court mandated. There were no external conditions, consequences like that. It was like all internally motivated. That's another experience of that step one. Knowing how much trouble I'm in, knowing I'm really, really sick. And and it was time to rebuild life. And of course, they say if you want a sober house in New York City, there's a couple in Washington Heights, and that's where I used to cop all the time. I spent so much time up there, and I was like, okay. And I'm like, I just can't go back to the city. I can't. Like, I was too raw. I just knew better. I just knew that I couldn't trust myself, and they recommended a sober house in New Jersey, and that's how I ended up in New Jersey. This is not a New Jersey accent. Oh, it's not even an American accent, but you know what I mean. I've been in New Jersey for 18 years. Before that, I was such a New Yorker. New York City, that's my place. That's my jam. I grew up there. I went to high schools there. I went to college there. I worked there. And I came to trying to drive a stick shift with no license in Hoboken once. That was my only experience of New Jersey. Like that was it. That was my only experience in New Jersey. So another I'm just sharing personally, like another example of what it looks to be surrendered and carried. I'm in some small town in North Jersey. I don't even know where I am. It's not on my bucket list. Let me tell you that. It is not on my bucket list. And it's okay. I'm on a top bunk, and the girl that's rooming with me is smoking crack and shooting dope all night and chewing my ear off. And there's a stillness and a space between me and her I can't explain. I don't pick up. I don't have a cell phone, and I'm using a pay phone in a hallway. You know? I mean, 2 days after I landed there, I meet the sponsor, my sponsor, who's my sponsor to this day, who tells me how much trouble I'm in and how sick I am, who's armed with the facts about herself, and who has no agenda except to take me through the 12 steps as outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, with only one condition and one condition only, that I paid forward. And I've been honoring that ever since. And this woman was so attractive, man. She exuded freedom and confidence and humility, and I couldn't lie to her, and I couldn't explain it. I had no issue lying to anybody else in my life ever, including myself. But in front of this woman, for some reason, she was like a Yoda or a Buddha or something. Like, it's so weird when they're like awake. You know what I mean? When they're awake, you feel safe you're like the elders in CA, in AA, like you feel like you can tell them anything. This woman like exuded spiritual awakening. I didn't know I was asleep, but I liked that she was awake. That's attraction. That's really, really attractive. She was transmitting a message without saying a word with her being. She was telling me it was possible to be real, to be free from the demands of the mind, to be free from that inner condition and inner turmoil. It's possible to not live, with the God of reason only. It's possible to be comfortable in my own skin and not need to check out. It's possible to have compassion and forgiveness and trust despite what I've been through. It's possible that all of those things, all of those dirty, ugly, painful things can be turned to good use. And she was uniquely qualified. And, the truth was like, I couldn't, like, my brain was short circuiting that the woman standing in front of me drank the way she did. You know what I mean? And today, like the greatest compliment I get, by the way, that sober house that I landed in, I worked there 18 years later. Not a job that I asked for, not a job I wanted, definitely was not on my bucket list, and I still live in New Jersey. Go figure. But I was gonna go somewhere really good with that one, and now it's gone. Oh, the best compliment I get today is when like some newcomer comes into the house and like they look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're an addict?" You know? That is so awesome. I'm like, "Yes." Talk about transformation. That's the generosity of the 12-step surgery. It's a surgery. It's a spiritual surgery. Really. It's a spiritual surgery. It is so generous. It met me as deep as I wanted to go. You know, that first time around was like a first kiss. There was an innocence to it. I did the best. There was sincerity. I wanted to know the truth. I just wanted to know the truth. And that's how I entered the step work. And that's how I entered this dialogue with this power, because my sponsor had a dialogue with her power and she believed in that power. And I saw that this power has accomplished the miraculous. And I trusted when she said that I have an inner unsuspected inner resource. And I trusted when she said that deep down within me, deep down within every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And I saw in my inventory how much I lived from the narrative of my mind. I saw how I never really lived in the present, that I was never really here and never really felt alive, that I lived in the commentary of my mind. And that's why I felt separated from you and separated from life. And that's why I was always in conflict with life, because that was driven by insecurity, by that fear, a corroding thread. Because the fear always wants to know what's the next move and what's in it for me. It's self-absorbed and self-centered and it's self-seeking. And so I was just really living in the neck up only. From the neck up. I was just living in my head. And it's so beautiful how Bill writes about that, God of Reason. He talks about this, like, I see intellectual shadow in whose shadow I quivered, something like that. I'm butchering it a little bit, but it's somewhere there in We Agnostics. And it's so beautifully written how we never really gave a spiritual side of life a fair hearing, you know? And, you know, for me, like having this experience was really stepping into the unknown, but it was motivated by the fact that I was cornered. I had no more cards left to play. I had no cards left to play. I wish everybody a really, 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 really strong bottom. Not because I want that kind of pain for anybody, but because that's what beat me into a state of reasonableness. I needed a desperation of a drowning person. Like, why would you do this radical stuff unless you know what the problem is? I need to understand how radically sick I am in order to take radical 12 steps. I mean, who takes their own inventory? Who gives back money? Who calls the dealer 2 years later to give him back money? Who does that? Condition of, you know, like that became more important. Like that I can travel lighter through life became more important. That I give honor to being saved and reborn became more important. Why would I sit and meditate and pray to a thing that I doubt can even be in a relation, that I can be in a relationship with, or that can be personal to me in early recovery, not knowing if it's really like going anywhere? Because I have no other option. And why do I have no other option? Because for 11 years I exhausted them all. That's the kind of step one experience I wish on everybody. When a sponsee comes to me and with a strong step one experience, I don't have to do anything. Well, I don't have to do anything even if they're not willing. It's going to weed itself out anyway. But you know what I'm talking about. There's not much to do. Lena, my sponsor, she just held my hand, carried me through an experience that I had no reference point for. It was too new for me. But the book and her being gave words to what was already inside of me in some way. Just like the fourth column in the resentment inventory speaks the truth and brings us to our heart. Same way. You know, just like the fourth, the fourth, the fourth step in general equalizes all of the stories in the head. and weeds out many of them if we're willing to look and reflect and review. And funny enough, until the ninth step, we don't even leave our home. I didn't leave my sober house until the ninth step. I was tasked only with looking. Look, tell the truth. Look, tell the truth. Stay willing, stay open. Look, get quiet. Get information from some other place than your mind. Pray. Be humble, be open. Look, tell the truth. Look and tell the truth. And, like, obviously, I would say the fifth step experience really made me feel a part of and brought me to a place of recognizing that I could sit still in my own skin comfortably with myself. I never had that experience before. It brought me to tears. It really brought me to tears and enthused me. I wanted and needed God more. I wanted and needed this power. I wanted to experience those goosebumps. I wanted the goosebumps. And then the ninth step amends really made me feel emotional sobriety. I felt like I was growing internally as a person, and I was owning my life. I no longer put my life and the context of it in other people's hands. Just like the book says, we're screwed if my happiness is conditional on how they move and the cards I've been dealt. I saw people with less than me, happier than me. I wondered why. What are they practicing that I'm not? And then I became a seeker. I really became a seeker. I fell in love with the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and all of that really started to make sense and started to live inside of me as I made myself available to service. There was something about verbalizing it and reading it to others and having the experience with others that cemented the experience inside of me more. And anything that I couldn't see in early recovery was seen as I worked with others through the steps. And, granted, my first go around was I blamed everything on booze and drugs. And I was 27 years old when I lost everything and I came into the rooms. I'm 45 now. It gave me a way of life and a design for living, gave me tools to use as life showed up. And life gets lifey. Life showed up in 18 years. Ups and downs of life are certain. And, through consistency in being a member of a fellowship and consistency in serving and being of service and honoring that one sentence my sponsor said in the beginning, and honoring that profound experience under the influence, and honoring an opportunity, this generous opportunity that's been given to me through this work, I've been able to meet some really shitty things in life that we all get. And the craziest thing is, to get to a place that even if I could, I wouldn't. The book talks about even if I could, I wouldn't. I get that. I don't take that lightly. I also don't take my sobriety lightly. Tomorrow is not promised. I work in a sober house for 18 years. Do you know how many I've buried? I haven't met an original person in a decade. I haven't heard an original thought, excuse why they relapsed, why they don't need to do that and need to, in so long. It's one alcoholism, one drug addiction. It manifests itself in a certain way, my perception, my stories, and the egoic thinking. It's one recovery. It's soft, it's open, it's all-inclusive, it's light, it's inspiring, it carries us, it moves us. It has wisdom. And I stand in the way. How do I stand in the way? By playing God. I gotta quit playing God. Why? It doesn't work. It's a failed system. Getting information only from my mind is a failed system. Thinking I know best is a failed system. Arguing with reality is a failed system. What would it look like if I made each moment a friend? What would it look like if I welcomed it? Step 10 and step 11 talks about that. Say yes to what's in front of you. Be here now. Stay present. You can't see the bigger picture. And maybe that pain and that challenge and that grief and that loss and whatever can be turned to the benefit of others. That's the only way it will make sense. The pain does not get to be taken away. You get to experience it because that's what makes me alive. I just wanted to feel alive. I wanted to feel alive. I wanted to be real. I wanted to be a part of life. It's like almost like there was a surrender. There was an experience of surrender on September 14, 2006. And the rest of 18 years so far has been learning how to continue to practice surrender, being surrendered, consciously surrendering, voluntarily surrendering, staying surrendered, staying in prayer, staying open. Because life can be harsh and it shuts me down. And where's mine? And thankfully, I have some tools. And thankfully, we do this work and we get cleaned out. The path to the spirit that's deep down within us gets like, we have a little bit more of that God consciousness, right? He talks about God instead of self-consciousness, toxic relationship with self-consciousness. Now it's like I have that sixth sense, God consciousness. My body informs me when I'm not living in truth, when I'm arguing with something that's present. Yeah, I want to change some people, but I can't. What can I learn from it? How can I navigate that? This is juicy stuff. This is really deep stuff. The message that we get is proportional to the depth of our grittiness. The message that you guys gave me is proportional to the pain I felt inside. The pain that brought me to ending my life. And at the end of the day, I shouldn't even be alive. 18 years ago, I made a decision to end my life. Everything after that is a gift. Everything after that. And is not guaranteed. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I have no idea what tomorrow brings. I don't know if I'm going to be sober tomorrow. That's a step one experience. That's step one experience. I still have profound respect for addiction and alcoholism. And the power it has to delude me, to take everything that's dear to me from me, to turn me into something that I don't even want to be, that I know better. Right? And that equally, I need to have the kind of respect that meets that, the power that meets that. I need to seek that power. I only found that, it's the greatest way for the most amount of us is the 12 steps. It's the greatest gift. It's been very, very generous to me. And with that, thank you for letting me talk about my cocaine addiction. Thanks for letting me share.